Welcome friends. The frantic efforts of reconciliation between the two communities in Kashmir through various mechanisms of restorative justice is a step to ultimate perfection of denial of genocide and connected justice to the victims of genocide. Before we embark upon how this tantamount to denial of genocide, it is important to know what restorative justice means in legal parlance and its impossibility in the context of genocide of Kashmiri Pandits. The foundational principles of restorative justice have been summarized as follows. Crime causes harm and justice should focus on repairing that harm. The people most affected by the crime should be able to participate in its resolution. The responsibility of the government is to maintain order and of the community to build peace. If restorative justice were a building, it would have four corner posts. Inclusion of all parties, encountering the other side, making amends for the harm, reintegration of the parties into their communities. In order for the goals of restorative justice processes to be achieved, the following preconditions should be fulfilled. A. Invite full participation and concerns. Victims, offenders and community should have a voice in responding to criminal harm, and there should be as much agreement as possible in what the outcome should look like. Primarily in the present context, historical events, facts, perceptions and apprehensions are of utmost importance. Denials, narratives, counter-narratives from both the offenders as well as state substantially establish the purpose of compromise between the offenders and the authorities. Observations of honorable judge in case of Bitta Karate are glaring example.
अच्छा, आपने कितने लोगों की जाने ली?
मुझे याद नहीं कितने लोग मारे।
यानी आपने इतने सारे लोग मार डाले कि आपको ये भी नहीं याद कि आपने कितने लोग मार डाले?
10-12 हम मारे होंगे।
10-12 की 20?
अब 20 ही होगा।
पहला कत्ल कब किया आपने? पहला कत्ल कब किया आपने?
मैं सोच रहा हूँ पहला मर्डर मैंने सतीश को मारा।
सतीश कौन?
सतीश कुमार तिक्कू।
When releasing Farooq Ahmed Dar on bail in 2006, the Tada court judge N.D. Vani remarked, the court is aware of the fact that the allegations against the accused are of serious nature and carry a punishment of death sentence or life imprisonment. But the fact is that the prosecution has shown total disinterest in arguing the case. Thus, the colorable intent is already loaded, making the participation of all concerned futile to any sort of agreement. All those who feel they have a stake in the conflict should be invited to participate in dialogue around the issues and have a voice in the outcomes or decisions made. Post-independence of India, the offenders, including mainstream political parties, have acknowledged and demanded talks with Pakistan, as they believe Pakistan is a party. But is that in any case acceptable to the nation as well as the victims? B. Heal what has been broken. When a crime is committed, the need of healing inevitably arises. This may take the form of emotional healing for victims and for offenders, relationship healing, and for reparation of property damage. 30 years of denial, 73 years of harassment, and 700 years of harrowing and bone-chilling history of gore and blood, torture and religious persecution, molestation and disquiet. Tragically, Kashmiri Pandits have been harried, despoiled and laid waste and victims to wild oppression and abominable persecution. They have been fleeing every now and then from their homeland. From cent% of population squeezed to a mere single-digit % of total population. Healing undoubtedly is a necessity of justice, but cure is preferred. Satyam to Patyam, seventh and last is the objective. Penicia, Panun Kashmir, our own homeland. This is arguably healing and reparation. Things that are said or done during conflict or disagreement be hurtful. As much as possible, the restorative approach wants to bring those hurts to light and work at healing or reparation. Offenders have time and again denied So has the state as well as the civil society. Imagine a chief minister in assembly claims Kashmir is a Muslim majority and shall remain so, and then advocating Jagmohan theory, claiming government of India had said Jagmohan to massacre Kashmiri Muslims. How naive. Ignoring the fact when Jagmohan was sent as governor of Jammu and Kashmir in 1990, Mufti Muhammad Saeed was the Home Minister of India.
Ask the truth. It was Jagmohan who took them away, saying that I am going to be hard on the Muslims. Repercussions may be on you, but I'll bring you back.
C. Seek full and direct accountability. Now the model adopted is offenders need to take responsibility for their actions and choices. They are given the opportunity to explain their behavior and fulfill the obligations created from their behavior directly to the people they have harmed. In the present case, denial has been the hallmark, so expecting an admission remains a doubtful expectation. Nurture environment where people are encouraged to take ownership for their own role in escalating a conflict. Respectfully expect people to be accountable for their actions in ways that are fair and responsible. Again, it has always been denial, denial and denial.
But you see, the question arises that they never considered this Kashmiri Muslims. You see, when they left the valley, they never thought about the Kashmiri Muslims, what would happen to them. So now they are crying that, oh, we want to come to Kashmir. So you see, we say to them, okay, we forgive them, what have they done in past.
Now next important factor is reunite what has been divided. Victims of crime often experience a sense of isolation from the community, as do offenders. While the reasons for this sense may differ between these two groups, essentially a process that allows for reintegration needs to be sought in the wake of a crime for all that have been affected. Such a process can recreate a sense of wholeness and closure, as well as sense of integration into the community. Conflict in places of interaction can create feelings of isolation and outcast. It can result in individuals taking sides and developing an us and them mentality. As much as possible, a restorative approach aims to take stock of where divisions have occurred in these communities and work towards understanding and reconciliation. 30 years in exile, generational shift, indoctrination of extremism has added to the isolation, which is increasing with every passing moment. Understanding and reconciliation is possible between the equals. For argument's sake, when two brothers are in conflict to each other's interests, parental homes are divided between the two according to their shares. That is perhaps the most applicable and justifiable solution to such disputes. Strengthen the community to prevent full-time harms. A justice process that is restorative will focus not only on the details of the crime at hand, but what the systemic causes of crime are in the community and how they can be addressed. In this way, a healthier and safer community is created for all, not just these wanting to be protected from crime. Causes of crime need no explanation. Attempt to create a caliphate, creation of harmonious community is a tried and tested and failed formula when it comes to Kashmir situation. After every exodus, Kashmiri Pandits have tried to create harmonious society, but were always butchered like sheep at the will and whims of butchers. Any kind of community can use conflict to learn, grow and change where necessary. A restorative approach can help eliminate where opportunities for positive changes lie in order to make the community a healthier but more enjoyable place for all. Experimentally or introducing new modes for dispute resolution instead of mechanism already adapted internationally which are apt to solve the issue and it only depicts the intention of delaying on part of the objective which amount to re-victimization, as false hopes are revised every time in the name of justice, which time and again turn out to be mere eyewashes.
The organization which has been declared unlawful today, that is the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, led by Muhammad Yasin Malik, has spearheaded the separatist ideology in the valley, and it has been at the forefront of separatist activities and violence since 1988. Murders of Kashmiri Pandits by JKLF in 1989 had triggered their exodus from the valley. And Muhammad Yasin Malik was the mastermind behind the purging of Kashmiri Pandits from the Kashmir Valley and was responsible for their genocide.
But is restorative justice really possible? In order for these processes to be successful, all these preconditions and principles have to be implemented. If not, which we have established, it's not possible. Restorative justice is yet another mean for continuation of the victim's oppression. Not only that the crimes and harms done are not acknowledged, but they are denied, which makes restorative justice impossible to achieve. Genocide denial is considered to be the final stage of genocide, which build on to the complex motivation inspiring the first stage of genocide and represents one of the most certain indicators of future genocides. According to Cherney, genocide denial conceals horror of the crimes and exonerates those responsible for it. In addition to denial responsibility, denials are celebrations of destruction, renewed humiliations of survivors, and metaphorically murders of historical truth and collective memory. In fact, denial is a double murder, since the deniers kill the dignity of the survived and tend to destroy the memory of the crime, whereby they prevent the wounds inflicted by the genocide from healing. Deborah argues that the denial of an individual's or a group's persecution is the ultimate cruelty, on some level worse than the persecution itself. The idea of restorative justice in present context on application of literal rule and golden rule of interpretation would defeat the purpose and objective of Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide Convention. Though restorative justice model was applied in Gakaka case, but the circumstances of that case were different and restorative justice was practiced by the tribes and thus a custom there, while as circumstances and customs are not applicable in the present case. The destruction of Hindus of Kashmir should not be seen in the context of a local sectarian conflict. It should be seen in the context of bigger geopolitical development, that is militarization of pan-Islamic fundamentalism. Pan-Islamic fundamentalism is a totalitarian religious fascist movement which seeks to create an Islamic monolith without the religious, ethnic and national pluralism. This ideological approach guided the genocidal campaign against the Hindus of Kashmir. Local perpetrators and abettors are the extension of global pan-Islamic movement guided by the ideological constraints of that movement. So reconciliation between local perpetrators and the victims will not materialize, and even if for tactical contingencies the local perpetrators seek some sort of an adjustment with the victims, it will eventually lead to the refoulement of the victim once again, which can be far more destructive. Kashmiri Hindus have suffered 7 exoduses since the advent of Islam in Kashmir and multitude of refoulements time and again. Hence, the case cannot be addressed in the context of local conflict, but inevitably in the context of the extension of militarized religious fascist movement. It has to be borne in mind that the Hindu cultural habitat has been already destroyed in the valley, and its reconstruction is an attempt to destroy evidence of cultural genocide. Return on the basis of doctrine of non-refoulement, which is secure from future assaults, sustainable and where rule of law and basic freedom can be protected and enforced, is an imperative necessity to address the return and rehabilitation of Hindus of Kashmir. Some Hindus of Kashmir participating in political maneuvers based on the doctrine of restorative justice have to be understood in the framework of definition of victim collaborators. Victim collaborators never seek a permanent solution of the victims of genocide. They seek an adjustment with the perpetrators. They are the people who have in destruction fait accompli and seek the patronage and sanction of the perpetrators for their survival. Moreover, their appeals to forget and the expectation to hurry up and move forward as the only possibility for the continuation of the reconciliation process, as has often been presented, the victims are oppressed again in the same way as by the denial of the crimes, which is said to be double murder. Since the deniers kill the dignity of the survived and tend to destroy the memory of the crime, whereby they prevent the wounds inflicted by the crimes from healing, or the ultimate cruelty on some level worse than the crime itself. According to Murphy, resentment does not stand simply as emotional testimony of self-respect, but this passion and the reluctance to transcend it in hasty forgiveness also stands as testimony to our allegiance to the moral order itself, an order represented by clear understanding of what constitutes unacceptable treatment of one human being by another. If we do not show some resentment to those who in victimizing us flout those understandings, then we run the risk of being complicit in evil.